just, for whatever reason, the other day, I just had a real hankering to finally sit down and finish System Shock 2. System Shock 1, I think now has become like one of my favorite games. I'd put it up there in the top 10 list, whatever. I love that game a lot. I've experienced it about 5 times, all told. I've played the original. I played the Enhanced Edition twice, I should say. Maybe I need to do the non-Enhanced Edition now. I played the Enhanced Edition twice. I played the remake. And I've also been on stream with my friend Prox when he played the Enhanced Edition and the remake himself. So I know System Shock pretty well. And I am very loving towards that game. I really love it. But the one you always hear about is System Shock 2. And for whatever reason, I just said, okay, I played SS2 a long time ago, and I never quite finished it. I think I got through like the first third of the game-ish. I got up to, what is it, hydroponics? It's like the 4th deck. And for whatever reason, I dropped it. And I couldn't remember why I dropped it, or if I even had a very strong reasoning for that. It was back when I was in high school, so I wasn't as good at articulating myself. And I just decided, okay, let's just do it. Let's just play System Shock 2. So now, having finished the game, I kind of marathoned it over a 3-day period. And having finished it, my main takeaway was, man, System Shock 1 is a really good game. That sounds like I hate SS2. I don't. I think System Shock 2 is a great game, but I don't like it as much as the original, which I loved instantly the first time I played it. Maybe if I decide to replay SS2, I will enjoy it more. But I just find, how do I talk about it? I usually don't like to be too negative, because I don't overall feel negative towards the game. But whenever I think about it, I think about how strange it is as a sequel, and how many things I think the original just does way... It's not like, okay, SS2... A lot of the things that are good about System Shock 2 are present in the first game. But the first game has, like, a lot more stuff that I love. And SS2 has its own set of things going on, but I don't love all of them. So to begin with, they're very different games. People often describe System Shock 1 as being like a dungeon crawler. I kind of get that. I see where the comparison is. It's definitely inspired. It's basically a descendant of the Ultima Underworld series. The UI is derived from those games. I see that comparison. That's a decent comparison. System Shock 2 is a survival horror game. There were definitely survival horror elements in the first game, but the dynamic was very different. System Shock 2 has way more resource management. Way more resource management. It's also much more of an RPG than the first game, with very heavy RPG systems and as a whole stat system and equipment and damage numbers and stuff like that. Well, it doesn't have damage numbers; it's implied, but it's got health bars. The original SS had health bars, technically. So System Shock 2 has a really cool opening. I really love the character creation segment where you're playing this time as a soldier who is stationed on board the ship, the Von Braun. And in the lead up to going to the Von Braun, you walk through almost, I guess I'd call it a montage of your past military service, where you choose which branch of the military you want to go into, and then you have a choice of 3 tours at a time. And each tour that you have the option of going into will give you different stat boosts based on what skills are challenged by that job, which is actually a really cool way of doing it. And then you go through that 2 or 3 times. And then your 4th tour is on the the whatever von Braun, the U.S. dead. I don't forget what the do you call it? USS HMS. What is that? The sign? The designation? I don't remember. The Von Braun is the ship that you're on. Going to Tau Ceti 5 on a scientific research expedition. And suddenly you wake up, everything's gone to shit, much like the first game. You've been implanted with cybernetics, and a Dr. Polito is guiding you to reach her on the 4th deck. Of course, there are many obstacles to this. And then you go about system shocking. So, it's much more of a horror game. That is in part due to the lighting engine. Some of the enemy systems. This game is made in the Dark engine, for better or worse, which is the same engine that Thief is in. Thief 1, at least. I think all the Thief games are in there. And how do I arrange my thoughts on this? Because it's a big game with a lot going on. So there's the lighting is pretty intense. The game can be very dark when it wants to be and hide a lot in shadow. So I got off on I guess I'll start off with kind of how my emotional roller coaster with this game. I did not like the start of the game. A lot of those comparisons I was making to the first game were, I think, the least flattering here. Part of the issue is that I think that Medical from System Shock 1 is one of the best first levels in any game ever. And the first it's medical/science, I think, in SS2, I don't think is anywhere near as concise and efficient and clean as the first game. I think you do just about get acquainted with everything, but it kind of runs into this problem, which is that, honestly, it feels really disconnected and disjointed as a level. So, for one, in System Shock 1, all of the levels have a very clear shape to them. If you just look at the maps, they probably look a little messier than they feel to navigate, but basically all of the levels arrange themselves along very strong shapes with inner and outer rings and corridors that go off in different directions. And then side paths and shortcuts and all sorts of stuff in between to link everything up. System Shock 2's maps look a lot more like a bunch of Lego bricks that got snapped together. Of this thing, on this thing, on this thing, on this thing, and then over here. And then there's a loading screen to get to here. And that's part of what leads to feeling a bit disjointed, is that you go through, you're on the same level, but there's a loading screen in between two chunks of the level. And it'll be like a new map that the game has to load in that you're in now. Which leads to a much weaker identity for at least the early levels. It also leads to, because it's not designed around these very strong shapes, I find that the level design tends to be actually a little more confusing than I found System Shock 1 to be. Once you have made like your first run around a level in System Shock 1, hey, this might just be me being very familiar with that game. I feel like you've got a pretty good sense for roughly where things are because of how strong like the landmarking is and how the paths kind of naturally lead. Like, yeah, there's all these side rooms and stuff, but generally there's like major paths that connect one segment of the level to another. System Shock 2 doesn't really have that nearly as much. There's like one level, what is it? It's not athletics. Recreation. Recreation in the last third of the game that does that. But for the most part, it's just not as clear to me. Also, I think the visual design is a lot more drab. I think that you could take a screenshot from any level in System Shock 1 put a mosaic blur over it, and I think I could still tell you what level it is. Maybe there's a couple where the tile sets are reused, but for the most part, every single level has a super strong visual identity that is unique to it and is not shared with anything else. I could instantly tell you what looks like that looks like medical, that looks like research, that looks like security, that looks like maintenance instantly. A lot of the visual design in SS2 is very samey. It reminds me a lot like Half-Life. just like science corridors and pale white and gray walls, and maybe a stripe along the ceiling, but it's pretty like, it feels kind of generic. A little bit more Star Trek-y, I guess, rather than the really out there colorful visual design of the first game. I think the Von Braun in general is a much weaker setting than the Citadel Station from the first one. So that's not great. I also don't love the combat. It's Dark Engine combat, which can be fine, but it veers into... Dark Engine combat, especially melee for me, can veer into Bob Dylan a cappella territory, which, if you don't know, is a term that I've started using for like when something is fine as a component of the game, but when there's too much focus on it, you realize that it's not very good. And it's like if Bob Dylan said, "All right, guys, now here's an a cappella song," and you're like, "No. You don't need to do that. We can stick with the hey, come on, where's the harmonica, Bobby?" I missed the harmonica. You play the guitar. You don't have to sing that much, man. Which is notable in a lot of games like, I don't know, Silent Hill 1. That's what I describe that as. Yeah, sometimes, like, I got used to the combat, but there were many moments where it pissed me off. The animations are weird. Like, there's not very good feedback on when you hit something. The timing of when does something actually become active? When is it dealing damage? There were moments, like, range is really strange. There were several moments where I am crouched at, like, the little enemies suck. The monkeys and the spiders, and the worms, when you have to get down and, like, crouch down and hit them, and this monkey is taking up 70% of my screen, and somehow I whiff. Somehow I whiff my wrench swing. What the hell is going on? But you kind of learn to, like, work it out. You sort of work through it and figure out how you need to position yourself. I also love I had to get used to it because I love the laser rapier. And I was kind of a little back and forth on the game for a while. And I think it starts to pick up. And for me, that the moment it starts to pick up was right around when I got the laser rapier. That was when I got so excited. I gasped. I said, I forgot it was in this game. I think I knew it was, but I forgot. And they do this thing. I guess this is the other thing I'm not, like, super duper hot on, which is the implementation of the RPG elements. They attempt to balance a lot of the game's weapons and abilities by essentially stat gating them. So I pick up the laser rapier, one of the best weapons from System Shock 1, absolute hero weapon. And I try to equip it, and it says, you need an energy weapons skill of, like, 3 and an agility of 4. And I was like, oh, okay, I haven't really been putting points into those. So that then became my my next objective. Just get enough of the cyber modules, which you use to level up, and equip that damn laser rapier. And what's really funny is that they attempt to balance it by stat gating it, but once you actually can equip it, it is still really strong. I think it does less damage than the original, but it is still a really powerful weapon. And I think that when you have it equipped, you could make an argument that it's stronger than the old one because it doesn't consume any resource. It's really weird. Every single energy weapon has to be charged individually. Instead of having an energy bar resource that gets consumed when you use anything that is marked as consuming energy, the game has every single one of those things hold an individual charge, and you have to manage them item by item. But for some reason, the laser rapier just doesn't do that. You can use it willy-nilly with no fear of running out of energy or having to recharge it or it breaking, which is a big problem in this game. I was talking about the RPG mechanics. Okay, let's double back for a second. So the RPG mechanics are fine. I just kind of prefer the original game's method of progression where you get new items and you find new weapons and stuff, and you just get to use them immediately without like having to put points into learning a skill. I find like gating stuff behind stats a little bit arbitrary. Maybe there's a world where it works better for me, but I don't know. I just got kind of annoyed. It felt kind of arbitrary to me, and I just wish that I could do everything. But that's because I am not as into the vibe. I'm not as much into the vibe of the game. In the original, it really feels like you are taking the station back from Shodan by wiping out most of the enemies, taking down the security level, and really like becoming the master of your environment. And in this game, it feels almost like you're perpetually on the back foot, which I think a lot of people would like. I just think I'm not as much of a fan of being stressed out and having to constantly maintain stuff, which is like, okay, weapon maintenance. Oh my God, weapon maintenance. Very weird. Handled very strangely in this game. So there are a bunch of skills related to how weapons and stuff deteriorate. So you can, as you use weapons, they wear down. And when they wear down entirely, they get jammed and they break and you can't use them unless you repair them. And you can repair them up to a certain level of quality. But then if you want to improve the quality of an already fixed, not broken weapon, you have to rely on a different skill called maintenance. So you need to put, it's really strange. It's kind of strange and clunky that they're split into two things. It doesn't make much sense to me. And I ended up in weird situations where it was easier for me, instead of maintaining a working weapon, to instead wait for it to break and then repair it back to a usable form. It's just really weird. I don't like it too much. And apparently, I'm a total sap. Because even putting points into those skills is stupid, because there are just items that do it for you. That I think work regardless of skill. So, stupid me, I guess. Egg on my face. Apparently, it's really easy to make a non-viable build in this game. I didn't run into that. I mainly spec'd into hacking stuff, because I know that hacking is anything like hacking or lockpicking. I usually go for that in games because I know developers like to hide stuff behind those mini games, and Those ways of gating content off and items. Also, hacking just it makes your life so much easier. Like, I hack almost everything in System Shock 2. The doors, the turrets, the chests, there's just so much shit that you can get through by hacking. Oh, the security terminals that will just disable the security for a few minutes. The hacking minigame isn't great. There's no cyberspace. Instead of cyberspace hacking to open up doors, like in the first game, you have a hacking minigame that is bad. You click on nodes until 3 nodes light up in a row, and then hack successful. How do you know which nodes will light up? You don't. You just click on them until something happens. And then if you fail, it's like, uh-oh, do you want to reset and spend some nanites, which are like the universal currency? Or do you just want to reload the quick save that you made right before you did the hack? Oh, what am I going to do? It's kind of ends up just being busy work, which is a shame because you're doing it so often. There is so much goddamn hacking that you're doing in this game, and the hacking is very lame. Yeah, I'm not... The whole idea of, like, managing weapons and stuff kind of got a little tiring. Got a little tiring for me. Again, just kind of I guess a subjective thing. I'm not that into how often you need to maintain your weapons. I think it's a little ridiculous that a shotgun wears down in like 20 shots. These are the worst. It is the future where we can synthesize matter out of nothing. But for some reason, we cannot build a shotgun that lasts for more than 20 pulls of the trigger. They just break and snap in half. Okay. I think the plot is interesting. Apparently this didn't even start out as a System Shock game. And you can kind of tell. Because the sequel-y elements are a little shoehorned in. Shodan is in this game. Oh my god, did you know that Shodan's in this game? She's only on the cover and talking to you like the whole game before she reveals herself. Yeah, Shodan's in this game. And what's really odd, this is, now having played this game, it is really strange to think about how many people have only played System Shock 2 and not the first game. Because the way everyone talks about Shodan is how she's like in System Shock 1. And in System Shock 2, she's a different character. She just has a completely different role. Like, if you've never played these games, it might surprise you to know that in System Shock 2, you are not on a space station or a ship controlled by a rogue AI. It sort of is, but like it's not Shodan, and the one that is barely a person. It doesn't even not really a personality. The villain Shodan is not the villain of System Shock 2. The villain are like mind-controlling space worm hive mind things called the Many, aka the Annelids. Shodan is actually your ally. It's sort of funny to look at this and think about how much Valve stole for the Portal series. Even down to the new AI in the second game being blue. Although Wheatley is a better character than Xerxes, who is not a character. But I find the story kind of intriguing, and it's actually kind of fun for a sequel. So eventually what's revealed is that no, in fact, Dr. Polito is not the one who's leading you up to the fourth dock, or the fourth deck. It's actually Shodan who's been impersonating her. The story goes that in the first game, when the hacker detached one of the groves, which you had to do to trigger the self-destruct mechanism, if I remember correctly, one of those groves crash landed on Tau Ceti 5, and the life that she had been growing there mutated into this bizarre like tyrannid-esque hive mind thing that just absorbs biomass and is able to send their little space worms into people's like living things minds and possess them and kind of take over their bodies and their minds and stuff into the big united whole, the many as they are called. And they're pretty creepy. They're pretty creepy. They are these the human enemies at least are these like shambling zombies who are wandering around. They hold their rifles really weirdly. They hold them like clubs because it's literally the same animation from Thief. If you've played Thief, you're going to get a lot of deja vu when playing System Shock 2 because a lot of the animations are just the same thing. One thing that was pointed out to me that I actually didn't quite get when I played it was that the people that have been possessed are kind of aware. They're still in there somewhere. And so when they moan, some of the voice lines, like they're apologizing to you. They're telling you to run because they can't really control their actions anymore. That's a very creepy idea. It's pretty cool. The reason that they're on this ship now is because when the Von Braun went to Tau Ceti 5, they made first contact with these aliens, and then guess what happened? Aha! It's like, Prometheus. I'm gonna eat this black goop. Uh-oh. And also, I guess Shodan had kept like a backup server on the Grove, so she's still there, and they also took Shodan on. Sure, okay. So after the Shodan incident from the first game, the next time that Trioptimum builds an AI, they are so scared of another incident like that happening that they put all of these safeguards in place to make it so that Xerxes, the new AI, is basically can't go rogue like that, or if it does, that someone from the crew can just backdoor into the system and neutralize it. This ends up biting them in the ass because once the crew gets primarily possessed by space brainworms, they end up reprogramming Xerxes for evil. I believe the goal is you've got to stop. Your goal now is to stop the many. You're trying to destroy them and whatever is their like super intelligence in some way. I also imagine, I think they're like trying to go to Earth or something. They're trying to preserve themselves, and you're like, we got to stop this. This is like a weird parasite thing. And Shodan wants to destroy her creations because they aren't really beholden to her, and they reject the steel. There's kind of an interesting dichotomy between them. Shodan represents, making something better via. She thinks that her goal is to improve organic life by adding the technological to it, whereas the many are entirely organic. They are like the super organic, and that's their strength. So even like the cyborg, what is it? The midwives? Those are probably one of the creepiest enemies in the game. They have this really uncomfortable. They're like these freaky possessed cyborgs. They're cyborgs, but the human parts of them have been possessed by the many. And they have these like skull-like bulging eyes and sunken faces. They go around humming like nursery rhymes and stuff because they're there to take care of the young of the many. They are a creepy villain. I don't think they're as strong as Shodan. That's another thing that feels like a little bit missing from this game, which is that Citadel Station itself felt like a character because it was essentially Shodan. Shodan was the world. She was the setting. And in this game, the Von Braun is just a ship. It's just the place that you are. And there isn't really a character for you to go against. You feel like what's so great about the first game is that while you are mastering the environment itself, you feel like you're fighting Shodan, like I said. And so even when she's not talking to you, even when she's not setting up traps for you or interacting with you, there's still a feeling that you are interacting with her. And it's a constant relationship that you're she always has a presence, no matter where you are or what you're doing. And in this game, the Von Braun is just a ship, and the many show up when you run into them. You know, they've got their zombies, they've got their big meatballs, they've got their worms, and all the other things that they've possessed. But yeah, they're just kind of like a monster. And that's not bad. There's lots of games where the threat is like that. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's not as cool, I guess. What else about this game? So when I say that it picks up kind of in the... when do you get that? Like maybe after the third deck? I'm trying to remember when I got the laser rapier. Like after that first third, maybe halfway through, it started picking up for me. Before that, I was going with it. You know, it's the solid System Shock gameplay of an objective comes up, you try to go accomplish it. Many things happen in the way that you have to do before that. And when it gets better, I think is, for me, when I started enjoying the game more was when I felt like I was getting more capable. At a certain point, weirdly enough, the game got really easy for me. I was just drowning in ammo. I was drowning in stim packs. I was drowning in resources. I didn't really have to worry too much about weapon degradation because I had a lot of maintenance tools. My skills were high enough that I could rely a lot on just the basic guns, the pistol, the shotgun, and the laser rapier. Eventually, as I put some more points into energy weapons, I got to use the energy pistol and stuff like that, which is pretty fun. And that's when I started to have a little bit more fun. I guess I just like feeling more empowered in my games. But before that, it was kind of a drag. That's what it felt like. And then, honestly, most of the game, like, my patience got a little tested with the last, like, 2 decks that you go on. The bridge and the... what is it? I keep forgetting that. Recreation. Just because of how many high-level enemies they throw at you and how limited ammo becomes. And this game has a very aggressive respawn system. It's really aggressive. Like, enemies are... I'm not playing the remastered edition, by the way. I'm playing the original. Or at least the one that you can find on GOG, which I think is running on New Dark. So it's not like the original, but it's the non-remastered version. This game has a very aggressive respawn policy. And at the higher levels, that became a little grating with how many of the big security robots they were throwing at me constantly. That got a bit fatiguing, and well, especially with the massive size of some of the later decks. I think the fact this game has an objective tracker is a big improvement on the original, where you just kind of had to wing it and guess, kind of like read into some of the audio logs to figure out what you needed to do next. What else? So, yeah, I would say that after those last couple decks where my patience started getting tested, you go into like the body of the many, which is a neat sequence. I don't think I hated most of it as much as I hear a lot of other people. They go like, oh, the game falls apart. I actually didn't have too bad of a time with it. I didn't even think like jumping into the radioactive pool was that bad. I had lots of anti-radiation stims. Um, it's interesting. It's a change of pace. The lead up to the final boss of the many, which isn't like the final boss, really pissed me off. Like once you actually the back half of the body of the many gets really annoying. There's some really weird platforming you have to do on these goddamn teeth. That was terrible. The lead up to it was bad. It's not a great final boss. You shoot the you shoot it's actually really close to the Half-Life final boss. You shoot the crystals that are protecting the heart, I guess, the core, and then it becomes vulnerable, and then you shoot it a lot, and then you jump down. Yay. But and then that's not it. Sorry, we got to wrap up this Shodan thing, because now Shodan is betraying you, and she is taking the ship's light speed drive and is using its ability to warp space to reshape reality, which is kind of interesting. And then you drop down into medical from System Shock 1. And I'm not going to lie, I know that maybe this sounds like stupid nostalgia pandering. I did get really excited. It worked on me. I clapped because I know what that is. I did think it was really cool to see medical again. They didn't copy the music. It's not even the entirety of the level. It's just like the first little chunk, but it's pretty faithfully recreated. And that was really cool for me to go back in the dark engine and replay that. And then you do a final boss against Shodan that was hilariously easy, mostly because I had really strong energy weapons. And then the game's last cutscene I thought was really lame and dumb. I think that the main character speaking for the first time just to say, nah, and then shooting her was really lame. I think that it's like... Also, the face that she makes is so stupid. It looks like the annoying orange. I wish that it had been a choice that you had to just shoot her. It's really weird to play an immersive sim like this and have a choice like that just be up to like a cutscene. Like, damn, I kind of wish that you just let me shoot her for real. That would have been cool. But no, we gotta have... I don't know. I just thought it was lame. And then there's a really lame sequel hook. So my whole progression with System Shock 2 was... First bit, it was like I wasn't feeling it. Then I started to enjoy it. Then I got a little fatigued. And then it kind of picked up a bit. Then it got on my nerves. And then it was cool. And then I thought the ending was lame. So quite the roller coaster. And honestly, putting all my thoughts together, there are cool things about the game. The horror is neat. The story is neat. It's an interesting way to make a sequel that doesn't feel like you're just doing the same thing again. It's really strange. I don't know how... People talk about the twist in this game, about like Shodan's reveal. It's a cool moment, but like... I called the twist hours before that. They basically spoil it for you in the game when the many asks you why you're helping the person who, tried to destroy humanity 25 years ago. And it's like, the twist, it's only a twist if you haven't played the first game. The sequence where that happens is cool. You know the one. It's the only video, it's the only clip that anyone ever uses of System Shock 2 with all the screens filling up with Shodan's face when you're in that holodeck type room. That stuff is that's a cool moment. Definitely very memorable, and a pretty cool introduction to her as a character. But it feels like whenever anyone talks about Shodan, they're talking about her in a game that they haven't played. And she's fine in this. I think it's interesting to cast her in the role of an ally. But if you've never played the first game, you are really missing out on most of what... Like, that whole moment with her, with the screens, that's the one, like, Shodan moment TM in the whole game. Whereas the first game has just tons of those. There's just tons of incredibly memorable moments with Shodan. So that's weird. It's a weird part of the game and its legacy. What else do I like about it? The progression is still pretty satisfying, at least like how you progress throughout the game. It's definitely a game where it's hard to put down because of the way that it's paced. Because the objectives just kind of keep rolling one into the next, and there's not a lot of clean moments for you to just take a break. Things that I didn't like. I'm not super hot on the RPG systems. I find them a little bit arbitrary, and they didn't make the game very... I don't really see what it added in my mind. I guess it's like, oh, there's a bunch of ways that you could build a character, and it's like, yeah, but you could probably do that without stat gating stuff. You could have used the implant system for that. Prey has a skill tree. I think that's a good implementation. Yeah, I just felt like kind of arbitrary RPG elements that I didn't feel was that justified. Some of the combat can be really whack. The game at certain points gets... I can't be mad at it for being cryptic because I love System Shock 1, so I won't say I won't be a hypocrite. Some of the things are just annoying. There's just a lot of little things that get on my nerves. Fighting some of the enemies gets really annoying. The way the respawning works gets kind of annoying. Oh my god, that area with the crates, the cargo bay on like the third level, or what is it? I think it's on maintenance. Fuck that part with the elevators and the robots that blow up. Oh my gosh. The horror stuff is cool. The horror stuff is neat. It's very I think I watched it's the Mandalore review, and I definitely agree with him on the really sharp contrast between moments of horrifying gore and like it looks like a massacre has happened versus really clean hallways. There is like an overwhelming sense throughout the game that something has gone really wrong, and that this is a space that isn't meant for. This isn't a space. That's not a space where this is supposed to happen. Other stuff I like. The many are neat. They're sort of a cool villain. There's some really good audio logs in this game. There's some really good voice acting, some very cheesy voice acting as well, but some really good performances from a couple of the actors that really sell some of the moments. Oh, I didn't even mention that there's Diego's son, Edward Diego's son is a character. I thought that was pretty cool to bring him back, and the fact that he is almost like obsessed with not repeating his father's mistakes and ultimately accidentally doing so, and kind of trying to help you in whatever limited way he can. That was cool. I don't know. Man, it is actually really hard. The more that I think about it, it's honestly really hard to come up with things that I like about the game. Playing it is fine. Playing it is a fine experience. I just think I'm not that into it. It made me really want to replay System Shock 1. I just don't think maybe in the future, if on a replay, I'll like it more, but honestly, as of now, I think I'm just not a huge System Shock 2 fan, to be honest. And that's probably insane to say that I prefer the first game way more. But, yeah, it's just not really my thing in a couple important ways. I'm sorry if that was disappointing to anyone who loves that game. I get why people love it. Just not Yeah, I don't know. Just more things that I get kind of annoyed with it than that I like. More. A lot of the unique things it does are just things I don't really care that much for. Kind of get on my nerves. I don't feel like dealing with them. I don't appreciate a lot of the systems. Uh, Story isn't as quite as the setting isn't quite as compelling. The villain isn't really nearly as compelling. Final boss is better. Final boss against Shodan, it's easy, but it's better. There are some great moments. I love that when you flip the gravity and you walk into that room that's supposed to be a chapel, but it's upside down. That's really sick. Um, I don't know, like doing the regular meat and potatoes exploration and stuff is pretty satisfying. It's just all the ways in which it deviates from the original. A lot of them I don't care too much for. I'm being very repetitive. And I guess we end on a poor note. I guess we end on a sadder note. I'd be interested to see this game remade. I'd be interested to see if this game got a remake in the same vein as System Shock 1. Maybe it could deal with a little bit of a rebalancing. I think it would be really nice to actually connect all of the areas and not have them go through loading screens, at least nothing on a single level. That would be cool. The combat could be improved upon. Yeah. I don't know.